I do, though, George, I have to say, and this is a good political science lesson for people about what a political party's talking points are. My colleague, Ms. Blackburn, has been instructed to talk about the economics first. And while I would prefer to answer your questions, I do have to note that this Republican talking point that women have lost jobs, the job losses came about because of the terrible recession that non-regulation in the economy brought about under George Bush. We have been gaining jobs since then, and it's true, by the way, that jobs for women have lagged.
Oh, I have to correct that. That's
I'm sorry, may I continue, George? George,
finish
what
the
are the
point,
rules
and then I
here?
want Congresswoman Blackburn to respond.
Well, I'm responding to her point about the economy. I'm sorry, George,
no,
what are we
Barney,
going to play here?
Here is the thing.
Excuse me, George.
Hold on.
George, would you tell me what the rules are, please?
You were responding to a point. I want you to finish your response to her point and then have Congresswoman Blackburn respond.
Well, I was trying to do that. She's the one who introduced economics for that political talking point position. The fact is that if you look at the charts that the Federal Reserve has put out, George Bush's appointee, Ben Bernanke, reappointed by President Obama, job losses peaked right at about the time Obama took office. They have been climbing back up. And in terms of jobs lost by women, part of the problem is that thanks to Republican objections to our efforts to provide help for states and cities, a lot of teachers have been fired, a lot of social workers, a lot of municipal employees. And in fact, private sector jobs have gone up by about 4 million under President Obama. Public sector jobs have dropped by over 600,000. And that's a large part of the reason women have lost jobs.
George, unemployment among women was 7% when this president took office, and it's 8.1% today. And you have seen women in the last year lose jobs, and that is something you can go look at the Bureau of Labor Stats. It is there. I have great empathy for those women who are fighting, struggling, supporting their families. The price of gas has gone up at the pump. They're concerned about that. The price of groceries every time they go fill the cart. When I'm in the grocery store, I will talk to women about these issues. And I've got to tell you, the number one thing they talk about is jobs, the economy. They're concerned about what is happening with the debt in this nation. They're concerned about how the burden of debt we are putting on our children and grandchildren is capping their future and trading it to the people that hold that debt.
Well, George,
I have a 4-year-old that just turned 4 yesterday, a grandson that turned 4 yesterday. And the fact that he now has $50,000 worth of debt on his head. These poor precious children that we're burdening with this because we will not, the Senate will not take up a budget, and you're not addressing the issues of debt.
I want to get to another economic issue, Congressman, because there was another big economic issue this week.
Well, George, I'd like to respond to that. But she's introducing you element. You ask her a question. Well, let me respond to that. In the first place, on the debt, these are the people who want to increase military spending unendingly, who are critical of the president for trying to get out of Afghanistan. Yes, we are spending too much money. We are spending too much money, especially on these international applications. I'm sorry, can I finish a sentence? Ms. Blackburn, I don't know what the strategy is. Don't let him talk, bring up new subjects. George asked a question, but I would hope we could have a civil debate here. The fact is that the debt is being driven by the Bush administration's decision to go to war twice with 5 big tax cuts for the wealthiest. I am trying very hard, and many of us are, to cut this. Look, the Wall Street Journal said that the Republican budget Ms. Blackburn voted for was a good budget because it protected the military against any cuts and made that up by cutting Medicare and Medicaid. So we're not just talking about whether you reduce spending, but how you spend. And the deficit is being driven to some extent by their tax cuts for wealthy people and excessive military expenditures, which I'm trying to stop.
I want to get to one more economic issue. This is J.P. Morgan this week posted a massive $2 billion loss from a bet on the kind of derivatives that help precipitate the financial crisis. Congressman Frank, he also said that the regulations you helped author, the Dodd-Frank rules, which were supposed to stop banks who get federal help from betting their own funds in this way, he says that it wouldn't have violated the Volcker rule, which is not finalized yet. Is he right about that?
I hope he won't be. That is, the Volcker rule is still being formulated. It's a complicated thing. Part of the problem, frankly, is that the Republicans, while they have plenty of money to spend on international military adventures that haven't worked out well, have reduced the funding that we've asked for the agency that's supposed to regulate derivatives, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission. And we're talking about an additional $100 million where they'll spend billions in Afghanistan and Iraqi police effort that they now want to get rid of. So the fact is that the CFTC has been slowed down to do that. I hope that the final rule will prevent this. There are other factors in the rule that are going forward. Years ago, what happened was entities like J.P. Morgan Chase made bets on derivatives and then couldn't pay for it. We now have rules that say, no, you can't get yourself in that position. Let me give you one specific example. This was done by J.P. Morgan's London affiliate. The Republicans in the House are trying to bet a bill through, which we're trying to stop, which incredibly to me would say that if an American institution's foreign subsidiary engages in derivative transactions, it will be subject to no American regulation. Now, that's an effort to weaken the financial reform bill we passed. The Republicans passed out of committee. They tried to get it through the House under a quickie. We said no. So we are very much still in the process of trying to decide whether or not we will have the rules in place that will. And by the way, we're not trying to stop banks from losing money. We are stop them from losing money in ways that will cause damage to the rest of the system.
Your response?
And those are the rules the Republicans are fighting.
Your response,
George,
well,
yeah, you know, there's going to be a lot more to come out, I think, on what happened with J.P. Morgan. I'm one of those members that is looking forward to getting some of that information. I think the Volcker rule issue, as you rightly said, is one that they're going to pinpoint and say, was it violated or was it not? Bear in mind, the Dodd-Frank bill, 2,300 pages. They've already had 400 rulemaking sessions, and this is where you have so much government regulation coming in that you can't see the forest for the trees. And I think that what we want to do is, it is not nonsense, Barney, and you know that what we want to do is make certain that as we look at this, that we don't enshrine this too big to fail, that we get to the root of the problem.
I'm afraid we're out of time this morning.
George, let me be very clear.
Real quick.
What she wants to do, and what all the Republicans want to do, is no regulation at all. Ms. Blackburn voted with every other Republican.
I didn't speak for you. You don't speak for me. No, you're trying to speak for me. I will not allow you to do that.
This pattern of interruption.
Good to be with you, George.
You know what? I'm afraid we're out of time, Congressman. I'm afraid we really have run over.
Well, I'm sorry, George. She voted against this. This pattern of interruption and filibuster is really not a good way to discuss important issues. She voted for no regulation at all in 2010.
No, Barney. You can't speak for me. I didn't speak for you.
You voted. I gotta go.
I gotta go. Thank you both for your time this morning.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Thank you.